My name is David Townsend. It's actually a long story, but what happened back in the sometime in the 90s, I had was watching racing actually, and during the racing event, General Colin Powell came on to speak, and I can't remember the year off the top of my head, but it was the year of the Bush and Gore election, and earlier in that year. And what happened was I was watching racing and I heard Colin Powell talk about this unique thing called America's Promise. I never heard of it before. And so I was listening to him talk and listening to him talk, and he started telling what these five promises were. And it was about opportunity to serve, ongoing relationship with a caring adult, safe place with structured activities during non-school hours, a marketable skill, and a healthy start in future. Now, I didn't say them in order, but those are the five promises that he said every child needed from birth to 20 to survive. And he started talking about how at-risk youth didn't receive these promises. So I've always had a little passion for at-risk youth. I grew up in inner city Springfield, Massachusetts. I grew up in a project housing called Robson Gardens. And everybody in that, if you was in the project housing, you was probably considered at risk. We was all on some form of state ID at one time, or state ID, excuse me, state benefits at one time or another, whether that be AFDC or food stamps. And for those of you who don't know what AFDC is, it's the old welfare, which is now called TANF. But so anyway, we was on different benefits at one time or another. Everybody in the projects was free lunch or whatever. So we'd have been classified as at risk. So I listened to Colin Powell speak about these America's promises and these five promises. And I was like, wow, them are amazing. Let me check them out more. So the internet's not what it was now, but we did have an internet. They did have a website. So I went and looked this America's Promise organization up, and it resonated with me. And so I got involved. I wanted to form a community of promise. I had been with big brothers, big sisters before, and I really thought that our community could use this community of promise. So I tried to form one, got some people involved, and through that, it got me involved in America's Promise on a bigger level. So, and that on a college level, because I was going to EKU. I just went back to school to become a teacher, and they were doing an America's Promise Summit that year at EKU, and because Kentucky has signed on as a state of promise, and EKU was a university of promise. So there's having this America's Promise Summit in November, which it turned out it was right after the Bush Gore election, and so we had kind of had an idea that Colin Powell was going to be the Secretary of State. So we didn't know if he's going to show up for this summit or not. But I got invited to this summit to be in a roundtable discussion with some of the state leaders and General Powell, Governor Patton, and the Secretary of the Cabinet of Health and Family Services. At the time, it was the Cabinet for Families and Children. And the Cabinet Secretary's name was Viola Miller. So I was sitting there giving my little 2-minute presentation that they gave me for being a part of this roundtable discussion. And Secretary Miller turned to Governor Patton and said, Governor, he needs to be working for us. And so after the meeting was over, she stopped me outside and said, really, you need, based on what you told me here, you need to be a social worker. I want you to go see this person, this person, this person. And so I was having trouble passing the math on the ACT anyway, to be honest with you. So social worker might not have been a bad plan. So I went and seen these people that she recommended. And after telling them the story, they said, I can understand why you want to be a social worker, why she suggested you be a social worker, because you're basically doing that with your community work. You just probably lacking some of the foundation and what social work is all about. So that was really the beginning of the story. I had never really heard of social worker other than they took people's kids. I didn't know what social work was all about. Growing up in the inner city, no one wanted social workers to come by their house. It meant bad news. So, but when she explained it to me, and this is again, sometime in the 90s during that Bush Gore election time, actually the election that just happened, and they was trying to figure out who was going to be president because of the hanging chads. If y'all remember, if you're too young to remember that, then I'm sure it's in the history books about the hanging chads. And eventually Bush became the president, and he picked General Colin Powell to be the Secretary of State. But it was a unique opportunity. I got to meet him, and he's one of my heroes because I'm a 25-year veteran myself, and he was a veteran, retired general. So it was just a great experience, and that experience right there is what led me to social work. So I wanted to give those 5 promises to every kid I could. So through that, I ended up getting my degree in social work in early 2000 or 2001, and I went to work for the Cabinet of Health and Family Services because after we changed governors, they changed the cabinet name and this, that, and the other. So anyway, I started working for child protection. And so I did child protection for about 9 years, roughly, working in Rockcastle County and then Rowan County. So, but during that time of working there, I actually went to Iraq for a year too. From 2006 2007, I spent a year at war in Iraq. But always, I never got too far away from social work, whether it was people I was helping on the post, keeping up with what was going on, some of the families I had when I was, at the job working. So social work was never out of my mind, because these families suffer. And I had a caseload of different families, and I really cared about these kids, and I wanted to keep them. And the one thing about working child protection is you don't get to keep them. You don't get to continue to mentor them. You don't get to do some of the things that needs to be done because of the cookie cutter and the mode of the child protection is they want to move cases along. They want you to close cases because you got more families to work with. Well, you can't always close cases like that. And once you develop relationships with kids, it's hard to just say, or with families, and the families trust you. For me, it was hard to just let go. So I was always thinking, I'm just a Band-Aid on an open wound. We've not stopped what's going on internally in this family. We can't fix them, but we've not thoroughly helped them fix themselves. We've not connected them with the right resources to help them find the inner strength they need to become the families they can be. So that never sat well with me. But when I got back to Iraq, other life circumstances led me to transfer to Rowan County, and I continued to do the same work. But I always knew that I wanted something different. I wanted to be able to make a difference in if it's one child. I mean, I'm realistic. I understand we can't help everybody change, but I believe in the social work preamble. I believe in our code of ethics, and we're supposed to be change agents. Our job is to do whatever we can to advocate for, to be that agent, to be that broker, to be that change agent in that family's life that allows them to make the changes they need to be successful. And success is, that's on a long spectrum. Everybody's not going to be rich. Everybody's not going to be, own a company or whatever the case may be. But they can have that sense of peace within that family, that they can raise their family, one step above poverty and have a job to go to and not have to worry about all the stress related illnesses or things in their life that allows them to go into the experiment with drugs or to get in a bad relationship. We ought to give people the strength that when they're in an abusive relationship, they can get out of it. They got to have resources. We got to keep fighting this fight on poverty. We got to end depression. So there was so many things I wanted to battle through social work. But in child protection, you're kind of held to a certain isolation. Your job is to do this, and the job is very stressful. So while you're doing the job of social work and doing child protection, social work generally takes a back seat because yes, there's some things that tie in together. You're doing social work, you're working with families, but then you get stopped and you gotta, move this family along to someone else. I just felt that I wasn't being used to the best of my ability. And I kept thinking, how can I be used? How can I use social work to help more families? Now, in all honesty, from what I've heard from the families I served, I did help them, but it didn't seem like I was helping them. I built relationships. I've done a thing, and that's probably my strength, is building relationships and making connections is some of my strengths. And so I wanted to use the strengths to my advantage and kind of parlay who I was with the profession. So being a strength builder, being somebody who can make connections and build relationships, what was the best way for me to parlay my skills with the profession that I now fell in love with? And beyond getting that master's degree, which would have helped me, I thought, well, I want to work more with kids and families, and I want to be able to stay with them. So becoming a special ed teacher, which happened in about 2012, I retired from the state and went back to school to become, or retired, I didn't retire, resigned. I resigned from the state and went back to school to become a special ed teacher, because there were so many ways that are lined up with social work. Some of the things you do when you have a resource room, kids in a resource room of special ed, there's so many things that align with our code of ethics that you're helping families. And many of these families are marginalized families themselves. Many of these families are families that experienced some kind of trauma. Many of these families are families that were experiencing living in poverty, homeless. So you can connect, you can make connections, you can connect them to other resources, and you can stay with them long enough to see them starting to build some of those internal strengths it takes to make it. Now I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. And one of my passions when I was in college was, when I told you about the America's Promise, was having some kind of facility, a one-stop shop, a group home, a residential facility. It just made sense for me to, in my mind, with my skills, to have something that I can have more hands-on with families and children for a longer period of time. So, and not to move this conversation totally to what I would call spiritual religion, but so many times during this journey for me, doors opened up that I didn't know were going to open. They just opened up. You know, even me getting involved with America's Promise, it just come by, they seen me and they heard my story or heard what I was passionate about and say, hey, we think you'd be good here. I didn't set out to do that. I didn't set out to become a social worker. Viola Miller found me and hooked me up with some great mentors through EKU social work department. Marta Miranda, who just recently retired as a commissioner, Doug Burnham, Pam Black, all these people continued to mentor me throughout my journey. And they knew I had a passion for wanting to open up a group home and do some things. So when I became a teacher, the opportunity started for me to mentor kids. But I went into mentoring as a way of raising money to do some of the things I want to do with youth. And it was kind of funny how things worked up. I was actually with my son's basketball team, and it was working at UK through Sodexo, and they was doing concessions at UK, and they kind of told me how much money you made by doing concessions. And so in my mind, the wheels are always turning, and I don't like reinventing the wheel. Just what's going on here? How can I use this to help what I'm doing to make that journey easier? What I'm doing, how can I make it easier? How can I build something? So I got more involved in this, or asking questions about this fundraising opportunity through volunteerism and community service as a nonprofit agency. So around 2012, 2013, I formed the Hood. I looked for a name that I thought fit what I wanted to do. And the name I came up, I wanted to have an acronym. I wanted to have something that was catchy. So I came up with the Home of Opportunities and Dreams. And the acronym for that is the Hood. And so that Hood name did resonate with kids. I was correct. It resonated. But it resonated in a way I didn't realize it was going to, I didn't know it was going to grow things the way it did. So no longer do I speak of the cliche in the movie Field of Dreams as a cliche. In that movie, I think it was James Earl Jones, he said, if you build it, they will come. And obviously they're talking about the baseball players, and it was an inspirational movie. But when we formed the Hood, I had two students, Sasha and Ashley, that came and helped me. And I got some of my family. Let's work this. And then I had to get a basketball coach that I knew to work under his 501c3 until he got ready. But right after that happened, kids started coming. The door opened up, and I went from two mentees, so to speak, the first year to about 100 mentees the next year. Now 100 of these mentees wasn't involved in every volunteerism activity, but they would come to my Thursday meetings and they would hear what we're talking about, and they'd want to come back again. And through the process, like, wow, this is unbelievable. I did not expect that kind of response. So as we go along this journey, these kids volunteer. We're raising money. We knew the reason we're raising money was to build the group home. Some little things would get in the way sometimes, but it would never prevent what's going on. It just, we might have slow down, but then other doors would open up. We'd meet other people or other significant things would happen to allow this journey to continue. The school, Madison Central, allowed me to have a club day. What I was talking about, we meet with the clubs once a week, and that program is built. So now not only did I get to do volunteerism, I got to give these kids a message of hope, a message of what do you do to get out of your situation. I got to expose them to different situations that some of them knew and some of them didn't know. There was plenty of kids in that room that was in foster care. In fact, the one girl I talked about, Ashley, had been in foster care, and I could look in her eyes the first time I talked to her, and I could see she was interested in a different way. And so I pulled her to the side. I said, "Are you a foster student?" And she said, "Yeah, how you know?" And I said, "I can just tell by the way you was looking at me and what you said. I could recognize it." So these kids started gravitating toward the program. And to make it long, and we'll talk about this fundraising a little more later, but what happened was these kids, every week they would come out and say, "Mr. Townsend, when are we going back to UK?" Now, I was taking kids to UK to volunteer, to work different events. And most of the kids I took to work came from Madison County. And I was, at the time I was living in Madison County, but we would take the trip over there, our trip over there. We'd work an 8 or 9 hour shift because you had to be there 2 hours before the gates open. The gates open, you work the game, then you got to clean up and do inventory. It would be a 10 or 12 hour trip before I get the kids back home. During that time, I revert to leadership skills and management skills, and I'm treating these high school kids like they're my regular employees to try to teach them responsibility, how to work with the public, and other hands-on skills. And they're not getting paid for it. They just go because they want to go. And when we finish, after I get on them several times about burning the popcorn or running out of hot dogs, their only thing to me is, "Mr. Townsend, when we coming back again? Mr. Townsend, when we coming back again?" And I always went home amazed by that and thought about it. Why are kids wanting to come back? When do they really enjoy this? So I had so many questions by myself. I'd ask some of them. Some said, did they have fun? And then you got to know the kids on a deeper level. So the mentoring part came place, because we'd run the kids who would have issues in foster care. We run into kids through this program whose parents may have been alcoholics or in jail or victims of some kind of abuse. So all these problems would come to light in these one-on-one sessions with them as I get to know them. "Well, Mr. Townsend, I'm struggling with this, and this is going on. Can you help with this?" And I have a special, on my website, I have what I call mentoring. To me, mentoring, when you take a kid on, and I always felt this way with child protection, that it should be a lifelong, kind of a lifelong commitment, especially when you take a kid in the state's custody who is been TPR, been on. They're going to have struggle attaching to a lot of people. So if you become their mentor and you've gained their trust and you've built an attachment, built responsibility, built rapport, why do you want to just leave this kid hanging because he ages out of a system? And I always dreamed of having something that didn't happen. So when this hood I was built in, the Home of Opportunities and Dreams, I wanted kids to become alumni of it. So we can always, if they needed a helping hand, we would be there to help them, not to enable them to continue doing bad, but help them get out of situations. Because we all know, if you're an adult and you're barely making the money to make it, and you run into a situation where your water pump goes out, if you have nobody to help you fix your water pump, then you might miss your job. If you miss your job that day, you get fired, then things start to snowball in your life. And if you're already a kid at risk, in whatever way you're at risk, your danger of that impacting your life more is more and more. It's going to be impacted by these unfortunate circumstances that we all go through. Now, in my life with my kids call on me. They call, "Hey, Dad, can you help me with this? I'm struggling. I got to pay this bill tomorrow and I don't have the money." And parents who are able to, they help them. So this hood I want to develop was a way of providing kids with a social network, a social system, a support system is what we call it in social work. We have a support system, whether it be formal or informal, but I want them to have a complete support system that where if they ran into something that is no fault of their own, gonna impact their life in a negative way, why don't we help them? We don't kick our kids to the curb and say, "Just lose your job." Now the state has kids sometimes for 17, 18 years. They might come into state's care at age 4. And because they have attachment issues, they never get adopted. And they're in and out of homes in the system. Then we have a little bit of a kind of aftercare program with them, but they're on their own. I know kids that got out of foster care at 18, 19 years old and didn't know how to change a tire. Well, we just failed that kid. We might have provided a roof over his head for 14, 15 years, depending on the family situation they was in. That all the time wasn't good or bad, but did it really support them? So I always looked at providing something that was going to give them more of a support system. So all that incorporated us forming the Hood, the home of opportunities and dreams. We wanted to put all this together, and it started with the mentoring program, and that I didn't even know was going to start. Again, that's one of those God things that God said, you're going to do this. If you take care of this, I'm going to take care of something else. So during that process, we raised enough money to build the group home. And we've had a successful group home. We currently have a group home now. I call it, this is the home that the Hood built. And I do that to give all the credit to the kids, because I want the kids and most of these kids came from Madison Central. And I want them to get the essence of understanding what a legacy is. They built this home that's going to help other people. And we had kids placed there for 9 months last year. Some of them now are in our mentoring program that we still currently run. And they feel the difference. They felt the impact of what this home did for them. So now I want the kids that help build it to understand what their volunteerism, what their community service, the impact it had on the kids we are serving. In fact, I tell all the kids I work with that I'm a big Muhammad Ali fan. And one of my favorite quotes is, Muhammad Ali says, service to others is the rent we pay or the price we pay for our space here on earth. And I believe that. And I try to reflect on things. I think someone asked me, am I a Sigma? In fact, you can see my Sigma thing back here. One of our motto is culture for service, service for humanity. My favorite awards in the military, I've been fortunate enough to get a few awards when I was during my military service, but my favorite ones are probably my humanitarian service awards, because it's about that humanitarian effort, the quest for service. And it allowed me to think back to the first time I'd done something ever with service that has something to do with community service. Did I realize what I was doing back then? No. But in the 6th grade at Warner Middle School, we did community service for the March of Dimes. And we had this big March of Dimes walkathon. And I went out and got these pledges. Will you pledge me 5 cents, how many miles I walk? Would you just give me a donation? And it wasn't as easy to get donations. You really had to go door to door, or friend to friend that you knew, or you gave the list to your parents. But anyway, the point of it is that we walk this walk to serve other people. And so as I started pledging fraternity and I got in the military, I started learning the value of community service, the value of giving back, and what that does for people, how it impacts our communities, how it impacts individual lives. And so community service has always been a big part of who I am. And I didn't really know who that came from until I start reflecting back, and I like to reflect on things. So if I could pass that along to 5 kids or 10 kids, and they pass it along as they grow up, that's how you start building communities, how you start changing. That's how we can become change agents, and we can start affecting change in homes, in communities, on a more macro level. And so the Hood just grew from all of that, and it's continuing to grow, and doors continue to open. I've been talking for a long time. Have I got anything that you want to ask any questions about?
You've done great. The one thing that you haven't covered so far, because you've really anything I thought of you covered. But I just want to more talk about how other people can get involved, other social workers can get involved with the Hood and help you out on continue this project and keep helping kids.
Great. And we'll cover that. One thing, I just mentioned the Hood was still growing. And again, the Hood stands for the Home of Opportunities and Dreams. Again, I have a mentoring on my website. I have what I say mentoring should involve in building rapport and keeping that relationship going. But the part you're talking about, we have 2 initiatives going on right now. We have what we call our Hood World Changer program, and we have our Hood Disney Dreams program. One of these things, thinking about some of my foster kids I had back in the mid 2000s, I know some of them would sit in classrooms and they'd hear little Johnny or little Susie talk about coming back at the end of the summer when Mrs. So-and-so would say, what did y'all do this summer? Did anybody do anything exciting? And that little kid over there that wasn't messed there at risk would say, oh yeah, I went to Magic Kingdom and I went to Disney World and I got to see Cinderella. And the little boy might have said what he done along Disney World. And I think I want to put myself in the shoes because of the empathy we're taught of the kid who's sitting there who's not been outside of Kentucky. And I thought, what does that make that, or how does that make that kid feel when his peer right next to him tells him about this great experience at, or he has to listen to it, this great experience at Magic Kingdom where I seen all these fireworks and Cinderella came down on the wire there and flew above us and all these oohs and ahs. But I'm the little kid that is never been out of the county I live in. And that came more real to me a couple years ago when I was taking kids to, and I still do this, but taking kids to the water park. And we had picked up a little girl. Their family was lower income. And we picked her up or we picked her and her sisters up and we took them to the water park here in Somerset. And it breaks my heart to even tell the story because I still remember that girl's face when we got to the water park. And she said, all this for me. That was her exact word. She says, all this for me. And she said it in such an undeserving way. Like she didn't deserve to be able to go to the water park. And I tell myself, what kind of society or community we live in that we make a water park so unattainable that to go there is just the highlight of a child's life. And so I tell myself, if we can do something to get this group of kids who normally goes home to a trailer sometimes with the windows out, you can't cure the roach problem. And that's how they live. And that's the only expectation they learn to have. How do we help this kid dream? How do they achieve if they can't dream? One of the songs, I think, if I can see it, then I can believe it, or something like that. It might be an R. Kelly song, probably the wrong person to bring up. But the fact of the matter is the words of the song said, if I can see it, then I can achieve it, or something along those lines. We have too many kids in our communities that can't see it. If they can't see it, then how do they ever achieve it? So it's up to us to provide them the opportunities to allow them to see the things that every other child's able to see, which takes you back to them 5 promises that every child has an ongoing relationship with a caring adult. We need more foot soldier mentors in the lives of our children and the youth out there in the communities. A safe place with structured activities during non-school hours. Richmond, Kentucky blessed me with that, with giving me a chance to take kids to the teen center every Tuesday from 3 to 6 and try to nurture them and give them positive messages to allow them to grow and develop. The opportunity to serve, them working at UK with me and getting valuable life lessons, or whether we're working at UK or Cincinnati or where we're working at. That's that opportunity to serve. And we try to empower them, and what they're doing is building this legacy and giving back to others that may be less fortunate than them. So that's the 3 of the promise. A 4th one, we're giving them a healthy start in future, just by talking to them and maybe putting that mental health person there and maybe making sure we have the resources to get them to the dentist or to the doctor. And then that 4th one was providing them with a marketable skill through effective education. And we're talking about education in school and out of the school. We make sure teachers are equipped with what they need to actually educate kids. And we have to advocate for that. And also out of school, we provide programs, enrichment and programs that allow every kid the opportunity to attain some of these opportunities and skills like painting or just exposure to things. If you expose them to something, then we don't know the impact of that. We know it's an impact, we know it's positive, but it's hard to measure that exact impact from kid to kid. But if we don't expose them to this, they're exposing themselves to teenage sex, to drug abuse, experiment, all the things that's negative. So it's up to us in the community and us social workers out here to say enough's enough. We need more foot soldiers. Let's provide more opportunities. Let's go back and look at the 5 promises and the way they were stated. And can we give, because I think that's real. I think those 5 promises, if we could do that from community to community, we would make a difference. So that's been my ultimate goal. So going back to the 2 initiatives we have, the Hood World Changer program and the Disney Dream program, it's all about providing different experiences for kids at different ages. And this fundraising opportunity, the group home's built now, but I've had another door open up with the fundraising opportunity. Things has changed. What we do is we provide kids the opportunity to serve through fundraising at UK, Cincinnati Bengals, sometimes other stadiums, Rupp Arena now, and that's going to actually grow. And sometimes we need adults. So how you can get involved, if you're a group of social workers, we got 8 Cincinnati Bengal games to work next year. Maybe y'all can work one game. Maybe we get 10 social workers from EKU to say, okay, we'll take the game on September 11th. And I'm just throwing out dates there. Well, those 10 people giving us one day just gave us $3,000. Now, I don't even care if they say, well, Mr. Townsend, can you use a third of that money to support our initiative here to do this? That's giving back to the March of Dimes. I know the Sigmas have a March of Dimes. That's their national philanthropy. Can we use this to give to the March of Dimes in the local area? Of course. And maybe we got a group of adults over here that wants to support the local homeless shelter or the food bank. So we give that money to the food bank. And then we take our youth volunteers and we fill in. So what we're doing with these volunteers, we're in the process of trying to build what we call a village of volunteers. In fact, we had our first meeting last night, and we're trying to build a village of volunteers that comes in and understand we're going to support different philanthropies and different kind of philanthropic initiatives. And what we do is we're going to form a committee and allow ourselves to pick a kid. In fact, we're sponsoring 2 kids this year, trips to Europe, different places in Europe, overseas, to families that can't, or no, I shouldn't say families, to youth that may not otherwise get the opportunity to go. So if we can give that to them, what are they going to give back in return down the road? This experience is going to open their eyes. So by us building this village and we get a few people to volunteer, we can make enough money to send 1 kid or 2 kids overseas. If we have that in mind. Now, the kid also has to do their part. There's games they can work at. We want kids that's gonna put some skin in the game and realize the value of community service. We want kids that gets good grades and has good character. Now, good grades don't mean you gotta have all A's, because then you're becoming exclusive again. Because everybody's not gonna get all A's. Everybody's not the kid that's gonna go to college. But if you're willing to work hard in school and you're willing to pass and you got good character and you're giving your time, and I got kids who's worked 400 community service hours working games. No college in America requires kids to get a scholarship 400 hours. I've got kids that's volunteer with me 5 or 6 years, come back to volunteer with me as college kids. That's worked 40 different football games in a span of 5 years, 10 hours a game. And we've given that money to take kids Christmas shopping, to buy a bus, to take kids to the water park, to build a group home. Now we can spread the wealth and support other programs. So what I'm asking for is to answer your question, if we can get volunteers, if you're an adult out there listening, you want to help the hood, help their community or other communities, volunteer to work a football game at UK. Every Saturday, I've been going to UK every Saturday during football season since 2014. I played 3 games since 2014. So if I can get you to help volunteer at one of these games, that's amazing. We're starting to pick up more basketball games and concerts. In fact, we're signed on now to work the Lil Wayne concert at the Rupp Arena. I forget the date it is coming up. We're going to work the Brooks and Dunn concert. We're going to work the Taylor Swift concert in Cincinnati and Cincinnati Music Festival, which I have to say is quite fun. I worked that last year and it's pretty fun. So if we get volunteers, and it don't have to be X amount, I can do it with 4 volunteers, some of these events, or I can do it UK. I actually need 15. But if we can put this village together of people willing to give their time and energy, they don't have to come out their pocket with any money, because if you go to a Cincinnati Bengals game, we will transport you on a bus. We can make initiatives possible in our communities without having to worry about grants, which are hard to do, and everybody can't write. and everybody's competing for the same grant money. It's not like these grants are not competitive, but there's no competition to go and give your time and volunteer when you know you yourself, if going to a Cincinnati Bengals football game is going to make us $300. That may be $300 you don't have in your pocket to give to us, but maybe if you looked at a calendar of events from September to December, I can give that Sunday. I can help us make $300. Oh, a basketball game on March 1st where UK plays so-and-so, I can come give you 4 or 5 hours. That's all it takes. And that's the main way we can make money, by building these, or we can fundraise in a community service effort while we're teaching kids at the same time, and we're doing things to build our community. And if we do that, the impact we can have on certain populations, our marginalized populations, our oppressed populations, and the lessons we can teach our kids, because they see us giving back, they see us doing things for them. They see that quote with their eyes by Muhammad Ali: service to others is the price we pay for our space here on earth. They witness adults doing that, so they want to give back. If you're there and you're in a fraternity or sorority and you talk to them, every one of our fraternities or sororities in Divine Nine, and I would say across the NPHC, has some kind of service component of giving back. They see that. If you want to apply to be Miss America or something like that, you got to have a service component. You got to be willing to give back something. So if these kids that's 14, 15, 16, 17 can see adults giving back, they're going to learn that this is important. They're going to hear messages that's important. So those are the ways you can get involved. Get involved through community services and volunteerism, and the Hood will gladly accept you. We got a lot of events coming up. And if anybody's interested, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. We have a Hood website. We have a Hood Facebook page. I have a personal Facebook page. My DMs are always open. However you want to get a hold of me through someone else. But we can make a difference. We can be the change agents we were designed to be in a lot of ways. But if you're looking for a way to be a change agent, I have one for you. And I would love for y'all to be involved with the Hood, the home of opportunities and dreams, because in our Hood, we believe opportunities makes dreaming possible. Let me say it again. In our Hood, we believe opportunities makes dreaming possible. So it's up to us to create these opportunities. So, Silas, I don't know what else you got for me. I know I can tend to be a little long-winded with my stories to my social work peers out there and my brothers and sisters. You know, I can get long-winded. I'm very passionate about what I talk about, but I wanna leave y'all with this: service is important, and our kids are important, and we can be the change that we were meant to be as social workers by spreading empathy and love and passion, and showing kids that we have a plan for them and they are important. And families too, these marginalized families. We don't need to let families feel like they're undeserving. Everybody's deserving. Everybody. I don't care for kids. You know, these kids struggle with dads that's incarcerated, moms that's incarcerated. We got to find a way to provide the mental health resources needed to help these kids make it to the next stage of their development. So get involved with the Hood. We can talk about things. I am not a dictator. I like like I said, I'll buy Christmas presents for any kid out there. And I tell the kids, it comes from them. It ain't from me. It's from the volunteers. I couldn't do this work by myself. I need the village. And we all keep saying that. That becomes cliche. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, if you truly believe that, then get involved in a village. We're building a village of volunteers right now. If you truly believe it takes a village to raise a child, get involved with your village.
Thank you. I think that was perfect. I think it's really great to hear the story of everything about how you mentor, like the mentoring and like getting them involved in the community and like basically immediately with really, it's a perfect cycle is what I think you're creating, and I think it's a very good opportunity for anybody, especially if you're in that area, to really get involved and help out.
Well, it can be unique and it can be good, and it doesn't take, if we can build this village we're talking about, then no one person gets burned out. If we have a village of 100 people that can divide up their time to go to these different events to help raise money for the community, then, because you know it's just a fact that our donation dollars throughout our community are spread thin. Every high school sports team, every cheer team out there, whether you're in high school or not, the different AAU basketball teams, the AAU cheerleading teams and wrestling teams, and the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, they're all asked for donations from the same people in the community. Sometimes donation dollars just wear out. There's just not enough to go around to really be to make any a big impact. It allows people to choose. Well, I'm gonna support this one, but I can't support you. But if you come and you join a village of volunteers like we want to create, then we can support different initiatives within whatever community we're building this village in. I'm right now working out of Rockcastle County, Madison County, and Pulaski County. Again, as being the Lake Cumberland Regional Chairperson for NASW, I want to get more Somerset people involved and more Pulaski County people involved, more Lake Cumberland people involved, because I know we have an at-risk population here. If you're a child of a homeless family, you're at risk. So many initiatives we can support through volunteerism. We like to spend our time asking for donations. That's just hard to do when them dollars are spread thin. But when these pro football stadiums and college football stadiums don't have a big limit, and as long as they're playing pro football and scheduling concerts at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati, there's room for nonprofit groups to go in there and make money. But we need that village to come together, develop a plan of what they're going to support, and make it happen. And that's just a passion that I have, and I really think that if you come together like that, we can make a big difference. We can change the lives of not just one kid. I'm sending 2 kids, like I said, sponsoring to go to Europe this year. Next year, maybe we can send 5 kids to Europe. And by sending these kids to Europe, and that's just one initiative, what are they going to in turn give back? We don't know now. We're not fortune tellers, but we know that they've been exposed to a life-changing experience. How is it going to open their eyes to make them to want them to be a better college student, to maybe pick a profession that's better for them? I've learned something about the Brandenburg Gate. I learned something about the embassies. Is that going to help me grow as a student, as a person in the next couple of years of my development? More than likely, yes. So us providing these opportunities creates a limitless possibilities in the ability of our kids we're serving to dream. And that's what it's all about. If we can get them to dream, then I think we can teach them the rest, because now they know that they're deserving. They know they have the attributes it takes to be more than what they see currently. Because we got too many kids that don't see what they need to see currently because of whatever situation they may come from or be in. So again, if you don't cut me off or I don't get cut off, I can go on about this all night, because it's what drives me. It's a passion. Social work is a passion. It's not a profession for me, or it is a profession, but my profession is a passion. It's not a job. I don't see what I do as a job. I see it as a needed passion. And it's going to take some more foot soldiers to understand, everybody. I never really cared about the upper echelon of the financial side of being whatever profession I've been in, because I'm not driven by the paycheck. I'm driven by how I can help other people. So then that should be part of our profession. It's always has been. But we need the resources to help us do that. So that's the story of the hood, where it started from. My beginnings back from Massachusetts, and them projects there that I grew up in, through coming to school at EKU and being involved in America's Promise, and getting picked to be on that roundtable discussion with General Colin Powell, and meeting Viola Miller, and doors opening up for me to do the things I'm doing now, and to try to build this village of volunteers that we can move forward and continue to build communities in a positive way.
Yeah,